I'm LG Anolis from the Horse Race Advantage. Today I will be talking about the third step in a 5-step process that will lead to you actually coming out ahead at the track. This 5-step process starts with handicapping and ranking, and in our first video I explained to you the information that you need in order to do ranking. In the second step, I explained to you how to select a particular track where you are going to be successful in identifying those horses and making those bets to come out ahead. And today I'll be talking about the particular race that you are going to select at that track where you are going to have the highest probability of coming out ahead. So let's start this process. So now that you've figured out which track to bet on, now you need to know which race to bet on in order to come out ahead. And of course we want to come out ahead, so let's take a look at see what are the factors that you would have to pay attention to. As I said before, there are 5 steps in our process in actually coming out ahead. The first one was handicapping and ranking. I explained the definition of handicapping and the ranking information that Horse Race Advantage actually provides on our website, horseraceadvantage.com. The next step is the selection of a track using information that we provide on our website and through the statistical information. And then today we are going to be talking about the race to bet on at the track that we have selected in our second step. So we're at the track now, and we're looking at several races, and we should not be betting on every race. We should be betting on that race that is going to give us the highest probability of a return. And the process or the methodology that we use in order to identify those races is called our Horse Race Advantage gap analysis. That analysis identifies the race and it identifies the horses that are most likely going to be in the money in order for you to come out ahead. Now, the gap analysis may show multiple horses above the gap and below the gap, and depending upon the number of horses that are actually being shown and together with a wagering strategy, there may be possibilities where you'd have to put in more money in order to cover your bets or your horses. And so with respect to how much money to bet and how many horses to bet, is going to depend upon your risk tolerance and also how big your pocketbook is. We always, say gamble and wager responsibly. So what does our Horse Race Advantage gap analysis consist of? We look for races where there is a big gap between the top horses that we have identified, like the first, second, or third horse, and the rest of the field. We're using our ranking values. Okay, the ranking values that I have explained in our first video, handicapping and ranking. So after we have figured the gap, we look at the ranking spread and compare these spreads with other races at the same track. So we've identified the track that we are going to be most successful at, but now we look at every race and look for gaps and then check to see how big these gaps are, and we're looking for the biggest gaps in one of these races. If there are multiple horses above a gap, look at the median ranking value. So if you, for example, have 3 or 4 horses above a gap, and you really like to look for horses whose values are very close together. So for instance, if you had 26, 25, 24, 21, 10, then you have 4 horses above the big gap. And the 4 horses are fairly close as far as the ranking value. If the gap is such that 3 horses are above the gap and the spread is like for instance 25, 21, 19, 16. There's a pretty big spread across these 4 horses that are above the gap. Now those type of horses, the likelihood to actually come out ahead is less than when they were closer together. So in that case, you would look for the median and then look for the horses that are above the median. Consider horses above median for betting purposes, and together with that wagering strategy that we are going to explain in our last video, you will be able to come out ahead. So let's take a look at a race selection example, and I'm going to show you how to actually come out ahead by identifying that particular race where you have the most or the highest probability of coming out ahead. So we have identified a particular track that we think we are going to be successful at. Based upon the statistical information that we have explained in our video, a second video. Today we're going to select the particular race. So let's, for instance, go to Philadelphia Park, and let's go to November the 8th. And as you can see, it brings up the races for Philadelphia Park. Okay, so now we have to pick a particular race that we think we have the highest probability of actually coming out ahead. So we look at race 1, and we see here that our ranking, this is our program numbers, and this is our ranking. For race 1, our ranking for the first 2 horses is 21-25. And you notice that there is no number here. We just ordered them, and these happen to have the same value. So we ranked them equally strong, and that's indicated here by the 100%. And then all the other horses are ranked, or their relative strength are ranked according to the 100% of the 2 top horses, and in this case they are equally strong. So there's a gap between this one, 21-25, and the 16-75, which is what, 5, 4, and 4.5. Okay, that's not a very big spread here. So let's go look at the second race. We have a spread here of 19, 18, and then the next one is 13. So we have a spread here of 5.5, which is pretty good. The next thing that we notice here is that this particular one's 18.5 and 19, which means that these 2 horses are actually fairly close together and of equal value almost. And so either one of these 2 horses could actually come out ahead. But we note that there is a spread here of 5.5. We also note that there's only 7 horses in the race, and therefore the odds on any one of these horses are probably going to be lower than if you had horses in a field of maybe 12 or more. Let's go to the third race. Now here we find there's a pretty big spread between the first horse and the second horse. There's 20.75 and 15, which is a 5.75 spread. Okay, Millennium Lakes and College Bound. So here you have a very strong horse, and you find there's another group here of 15, 14, 13, and so the median here is 14, and these 2 horses you may consider in wagering strategy. So let's take a look at the fourth race. In the fourth race we find 20.5 and 15.75. That's 4.75 difference. That's not a big gap difference. From the second horse to the third horse is 15.75, and that's a 3.5. So there's no big difference there's a big gap between here and the third horse and the fourth horse. And so if you were to wager on these horses, you pick these three over here. This one probably being first, but any one of these three horses could actually come in. And what's nice about this one is that it probably gives you an indication of the probable odds for these two horses over here, which means these two horses will probably have better odds than this horse over here. And for exotic bets, that may actually be to your advantage. So let's take a look at race 5. We have 23-25, 22-5, and then 17, which gives you a gap of 5.5. And again, these two horses are fairly close, and this horse is 5.5 points below these two horses over here. So interesting enough, there's 7 horses. So if you were to gamble on any of these horses, the first top 2 you would consider as a group, and the next 2 you would consider as a group. And the reason for that is because if you were to look at the gaps, then these 4 horses represent another group. And before, from the 12.25 to the 8, there's 4.25. So when you look at a group like this with more than 2-3 horses, you take the median, and the median is over here between the 15.5 and 12.75, and so you would take these 2 horses as a group. Okay, so if you were to bet on this particular race, you take this as a group, and you take this as a group, and you can have wagering strategies that hook these 2 horses in the first group with the 2 horses in the second group. Let's go to race 6. Race 6 is 15, 14, 25, 12, 25. There's no big gap here. There's no big gap here. There's no big gap here. There is a little gap here, and so there's no major gap in here. So we skip race 6. Race 7, we have the same problem going on there. I mean, here you have 1375, 13.5, it's 0.25 difference, 13.25, another 0.25 difference. These 2 horses are fairly close. Going to 13, there's a 0.25 difference, and so this whole group, the first 5 horses here, are so fairly close together that any one of them can come in. So this is another race that we would just go ahead and skip. Now looking at this particular race, race number 8, we go to 20.75, 19.25, which is 1.5 point difference, no big gap. From 19.25 to 15.5 is a 3.75 difference. There is a little gap, but not a big gap. Again, if you were to group them, you'd group the first 2 horses because they're fairly close together. And if you notice here, there's 3 horses in here that have the same ranking value, and which means that any one of these horses, even this horse over here, can come in third. Okay, so this is an opportunity or a case where you, depending upon your pocketbook, where you may want to start boxing or wheeling these 2 horses with these 3 horses here. It's a lot more money. The odds are going to be pretty high. There's a very high likelihood for these odds to be high because when we look at this, we actually have 1, 2, 3, 12 horses in this race. Now, the other problem is that these numbers, when the numbers are very low, it means that there's not very much strength in the horses here with respect to the class, and so we can verify that the class of these horses here, and you can see here 6 furlongs allowance plus the purse being 47,000 for 2-year-olds. And what that means is 2-year-olds just do not have a lot of history or past performance. So in general, when you have races for 2-year-olds, the probability is that they're going to be very inconsistent. However, let's take a look at the speed ratings. The speed ratings are pretty good, and that's probably why these horses are running in an allowance race. The speed rating here for nuts, what's or buts on 6/14/2011 is 95. Notice that he's not in the buyer ratings, meaning that his buyer rating was probably lower than the 67. Okay, and so in this particular case, you see actually 5 different horses here that are listed in the ratings, but there's no consistent horse across the speed ratings and the buyer ratings. The only one that is like that is Quotable, who ran on 7/25/2011 with a buyer rating of 67, which is pretty low compared to the buyer rating of 83 for Costa's 50th. So this is a race that I would skip because there's just no consistency across one horse. Let's go to race 9. So here we have 15 to 12:25. That is 2.75, which is not a big gap. From 12:25 to 12 is 0.25. So again, in this particular race, we do not see a major gap, and so we skip this race. So the only big gaps that we saw of any significance is the, let's go back here, race 5. We have a 5.5 point difference here, followed by the 15.5. So that's a race that we would consider betting on. Here is another big gap, and this is another race that we will be betting on or consider for betting. And this is another one, 20.75 to 15. We'll skip race 2 unless we consider this gap over here, 18.5 to 13 is 5.5. And here we have a 4.5 gap, so we skip race 1. So the races that we would consider in this particular case is probably 3, 4, and 5. Today I've shown you how to select a race based upon the track selection that I demonstrated to you in our second session, and using ranking information that we provide on our website, HorseRaceAdvantage.com, to our paying members, and also was explained in our first video. These videos consist of 5 videos, 5 steps that show you how to actually come out ahead with our information that we provide. So this concludes the third step in the process. In our next step, we will show how to what type of bets are available to you and what the payouts are, and this will then help you identify what kind of wagering strategies you can make with the horses and in the races that we have selected so far. I hope you will come and join us again, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next time.